A program meant to make over historic buildings using tax credits is still partially on hold. And some say that freeze is stalling job growth and costing cities and taxpayers. But others disagree, saying the holdup on tax credits is actually the smart financial move. Tonight, Fox 11's Bill Miston brings us balanced coverage.
This is a tale of two buildings, or I should say, a project that received state aid and another that doesn't have a chance, at least in the near future. The Shower and Schumacher buildings in downtown Green Bay are old, but not registered as historic. They have a leaky roof. The city bought them for $290,000.
That was always been the goal, is to be able to flip this to a developer, for them to take this thing on and to take the city out of it.
The city was close to doing that nearly a year and a half ago, but the plans to turn the set of two multi-story buildings into residential and retail space fell through. The city's economic development director, Greg Flisserum, says two new developers are interested in the property.
The bones of the building lend themselves to be repurposed as a housing or an office or co-working space.
And funding a roughly $3 million rehab became much more realistic earlier this year. The state increased the amount of tax credits developers could receive for renovating both historic and other buildings built before 1936. Here's an example. Green Bay's Hotel Northland is nationally registered as a historic building. However, the older Larson Canning factory is not. Titletown Brewing Company's expansion project into the Larson building was the first tax credit applicant and the first approved, to the tune of about $880,000. But in June, the state halted future tax credits. Why? Well, because the program proved too popular.
Instead of the $4 million in tax credit allocations we thought we'd be awarding, it wound up being about $35, $36 million, and we just had to pause it.
Here are the facts according to the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. 33 projects received nearly $37 million in credits. 21 of the 33 are considered historic and received nearly $21 million. And 12 pre-1936 buildings split the rest of the money. Because it involves future state tax revenue, the WEDC calls the program a balancing act.
Anytime you have tax credits like this, that's less money that's going into the state treasury, and you have to balance the needs of the state of Wisconsin versus the tremendous benefit of this program. The
suspension of tax credits for historic buildings has since been lifted, which is good news for Hotel Northland. However, non-historic buildings like Shower and Schumacher and several others identified by the city of Green Bay are left in development limbo.
That's one reason I think the moratorium needs to be lifted.
Green Bay Alderman Mark Stoyer is also concerned taxpayers could end up paying for building upkeep. Remember Shower and Schumacher's leaky roof? The city estimates a Band-Aid fix could cost tens of thousands of dollars. And without hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax credits, some buildings, like this one, could be a tough sell to potential developers.
As time goes on, we're going to see other buildings as well. So I think we need to look at this at a broad brush approach. We need to be able to say we have a plan in place, we have something available.
The WEDC says it's studying long-term job creation potential before making a decision on lifting the rest of the moratorium. Do you think that's a good approach?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that, like you said, I think it looks like this sort of hybrid moratorium is going to be in place until July 1 is what I'm hearing, July 1 of 2015. And I think it's really having a detrimental impact on some potential projects around the state.
Democratic State Representative Eric Genrich says the program is essential for cities to redevelop their aging downtowns. He questions why there's a sudden lack of funding support for the program. He says the Republican-controlled legislature and Governor Scott Walker cut taxes by nearly $2 billion since 2011.
The fiscal decisions that the governor has made, that one of the most successful job-creating programs that we have on offer, is now on hold.
The model that came from the Department of Revenue was inaccurate.
But Republican State Senator Rob Coles has another view about fully restoring the program.
If it's fiscally possible, but I think we need to look at that in the context of the overall state budget with all the other dynamics going on.
Like Wisconsin's tax collections. New numbers show the state took in about 2% less than it anticipated, setting up the potential for an unbalanced state budget next year. Cole says there is also uncertainty with tribal gaming payments to the state and Medicaid budget battles. He says lifting the historic tax credit moratorium will be a heavy task.
And then the question is, can we afford that?
In Green Bay, Bill Miston, Fox 11 News.
Both Coles and Genrich say it's possible the moratorium could be lifted by next summer, if at all. Governor Scott Walker said this past week the program's priority is geared toward redeveloping historically significant buildings. Walker says that's because the tax credits go the furthest to get the costly projects off the ground.